Do you know what has happened here today?
What? Tell me.
First, an old man took a in that change room.
Yeah.
Then, a young boy spilled garlic sauce all over an entire display of sweaters.
Oh, yeah.
Then, I was set on fire. And now you're telling me that you need a suit for a funeral and it needs to be Tiffany blue. That kind of garishness will not stand, sir. No, it will be black.
Hey, I'm the expert here. That's why they call me
I don't
Paulie
think
the
you're
pallbearer.
expert. I don't think they call you that.
They do.
You know what I think, Paulie? I think you're sent here by God to test my patience, and not today, big man.
Hi, I'm William SRD, satisfied customer of Forever 41, a small indie TTRPG in which you play a retail vampire stuck in a dead-end job, and your one and only objective is to keep yourself under control long enough to finish your shift without killing any customers. Which is a really great concept for a game, but it did make it kind of a bad day to try and return a pair of pants. They weren't the right size.
We have a little baby kitten. We just got her, and she currently has the zoomies, so the chaos as I'm filming today may be apparent in the production value. And if you want to get spammed by pictures of this little critter, you're probably just going to have to follow me on Twitter. Now, as you probably gathered from the introduction, I actually did a playtest of this system, just to see if my vision of it actually lined up with the reality. And I gotta say, it was everything I wanted it to be. If the concept is at all appealing to you, then you should just go ahead and buy the game, because I promise you it lives up to the pitch. However, I just want you all to know that there's kind of an upper limit to what is probably acceptable for me to cover in this system. You see, it's a paid micro RPG, which means that if I cover too much about the mechanics and everything, then... If I cover too much about the mechanics, then I'm probably infringing on the copyright, I think, and oh my god, could you stop? Point is, if this video serves as a replacement to buying the rule system, then I don't think it really counts as fair use. So, on the topic of mechanics, the core mechanic to all of this is a bloodlust meter, and if you reach the end of the meter, then you fly into a rage, and you start doing... vampire stuff to the customers. The tracking of this is fairly simple. It's all done on a 6-sided die that you roll every time you're in sort of an aggravating encounter, and it will tell you exactly how much bloodlust you're going to gain or lose from what's going on. The game is set up to be relatively short. You use a timer and you time out 3 15-minute sessions that are your 3 different shifts. Now, in my playtest, I accidentally messed up and I did a 4th shift, and it worked out just fine, really. Also, not sure if this is intentional, but you can probably play this on your breaks at work with your coworkers. Look, I'm not advising it, but I'm just saying that if you do it, if you curl up in the back room with a 6-sided die and a couple dissatisfied coworkers, well... all I'm gonna say is, snitches get stitches. The name of the game is Forever 41, and your vampire is eternally at the age of 41. That is when you are turned. However, the game mechanics actually let you choose exactly when you are turned as part of your character creation, and it will give you a whole bunch of bonuses and penalties to different things that are gonna come up in game. You can be as old as Jesus, or you could have just been bit yesterday. My player in my playtest was turned in 1666 and has been burned at the stake so many times. Though our joke was that he wasn't burned at the stake for being a vampire, it was because he was Catholic. What I'm saying is that the starting ages mechanic in this system is a really great jumping off point to create your retail vampire character. Next up, the game actually has a very robust list of settings that you can play the game in. Everything from fast fashion stores to coffee shops. And each of these settings has their own table of encounters that will happen during the game. And these encounters are so well written and so extremely specific that I'm left with the knowledge that the writer, Brandy Rose, has clearly suffered. We even have an expansion book that covers all of the traumatic memories they had of, Christmas retail work. I, unfortunately, did not spring for that book because I spent all of my production budget on mecha dudes and a shit post that you are going to hear about soon in a week or two. And also, I mean, fake blood's not free, you know. What, you think food coloring's cheap? Look, okay, how am I supposed to film when this thing's jumping all over me? Alright, like, get a life, cat. So credit where it's due. These settings and the associated encounters are extremely well made, well written, and they make the actual rulebook very entertaining to skim through. However, as you guys know, I like a system that's focused. If you're playing Forever 41, you're probably playing it because retail has hurt you in its own specific way. And you probably have your own setting that you want to play in with your own encounters. In fact, I'd be willing to say that probably the majority of the people who play it are going to disregard the encounter table because they want to play in their own setting. I know that's what I did. My player and I, who's also one of my best TTRPG friends, we used to work together in a suit shop, so that's where we set our game. And we would have our own relatively unique problems that you wouldn't really see in any other retail setting. For example, we did wedding rentals and stuff, so we'd have groomsmen who would come in, they'd get measured for their tuxedo, and bride would be completely livid with us, not our fault. There was also the fact people would be like, oh yeah, I'm looking for Tiffany blue, but what they actually mean is a sky blue. And yet I had multiple customers come in and say they were looking for the color mauve. Look, okay, I'm firing off here, but that's sort of the point. If you're playing this game, you probably have your own retail horror stories, and you don't really want to use the pre-made settings and stuff. So this is where I would normally chastise a game for having bloat that's not needed, because very few people are actually going to be using these tables. But the game was well aware of the fact that most people would be playing in their own settings and with their own encounters. They even state outright in the introduction that these are just examples. And as examples, they do a really, really good job. Specifically because they show you exactly how big these problems are supposed to be. Because each of these is supposed to be the story hook for a 15-minute shift. So this is an example of how big of a problem you are supposed to be able to solve in 15 minutes of gameplay. There's also a whole bunch of extra stuff in this that's all about vampire stuff. Maybe you work in a Hot Topic and you're assigned to the section with all the black lights, which are UV lights, so you're gonna burn up. So they've got encounters like that, and I ended up poaching a few of those into my own setting just to add a little bit more flair. You know, stuff that wouldn't have bothered a normal retail employee, but they're definitely gonna bother a retail employee who's also a vampire. So rather than offer a criticism here, I actually have to commend the author for knowing exactly what this particular part of the rules needed to be. Because it really could have just been a bunch of wasted effort and bloat in the system, but they wrote it in exactly the right way to make sure that it provided a ton of value for the player. Okay everyone, time to rate this thing in a trial of its peers. It's vampires. So, as I'm sure you can already tell by the way I've talked about this thing so far, I love this game. I think it's a fantastic time. You're gonna have a ton of fun with it. I mean, especially if you're playing with your coworkers. So, if I was rating purely off of my own preference, I would put it in S tier. But I also have to be very aware of the fact that this thing is for a very specific and somewhat narrow target audience, and I am smack dab in the center of that target audience. If you are the target demographic and this game is for you, then oh my god is this game ever for you. However, if you're not and you don't have a lot of experience with retail or similar jobs and you don't have a bunch of these horrible stories and memories, if you're not a bitter ex-employee of something or a bitter current employee of something, you're probably not going to get pretty much any fun out of this at all. Your game is just gonna feel like you listening to the Dungeon Master complain. And by the way, when I say this is a narrow audience, I don't mean that it is narrow in that there's only a few people who have been screwed over by retail. Lots of people have been screwed over by retail, but we're looking at a Venn diagram of people who have been screwed over from retail and people who play niche TTRPGs, and you're looking at that little tiny bit in the middle, and that's your target audience for this. And I'm there, but you may have a difficult time finding other people to play with, which is sadly a point against the system. So here's what we're gonna do. This is one of the most fun games on the list, so there is no way it's going any way less than A tier. Just let it be known that if you are in the target audience, S tier, absolutely S tier. Play this game, buy this game. You're gonna have a blast. Stop watching this video, go buy this game. But because it's not quite as universal as OG, I'm gonna put it at an A tier. I think that is the most comfortable space for it. And before everybody runs off, I need a favor from you guys, because in about 2 weeks, it's going to be my 1-year anniversary on YouTube, and we're coming right up on 3K subs. So if you're willing to share this video around with some friends or on Reddit or Facebook groups you're part of, that would be awesome, because we got a little bit of ground to cover if we want to make that 3K sub goal by the 1-year mark. And while you're at it, comment down below, tell me your best retail horror story, because I want to read it. One retail survivor to another. Lastly, just a huge thanks to all of you guys. I've felt for the longest time like this channel was able to attract viewers in individual videos, but I had a really hard time getting people to come back, and it felt like the channel wasn't really building a community. But honestly, like with these meme systems videos, it sounds like a bunch of y'all are coming back every week, you're hungry for more of these things, and I love that. Thank you all so much. You've really helped the last couple weeks feel really good on YouTube. All right, see you next week.